think I can safely say that I don't think anybody imagined that the day was going to go the way that it did go. We had actually had, a month before, we'd had a small group of Klansmen from North Carolina who had showed up here, kind of all dressed up with their slogans and their signs. And I think many people in their mind thought that this might be a repeat of that activity. But this was a much larger group that came, and that came really with the intention to cause mayhem here.
Will not replace us. You will not replace us.
Hail victory.
You will not replace us.
White lives matter. White lives matter. White lives matter. White lives matter. White lives matter.
Hey.
White lives matter.
I speak for, our entire clergy community. We felt that this is something that there needs to be a prophetic witness here, that the presence of clergy on the streets was very important, that people of faith needed to be prominent, that this was not just an issue of politics, but really an issue of justice and human dignity.
Love has already won. Love has already won. Love has.
I serve a predominantly white congregation. And so I woke up on Mother's Day, that Sunday, and was looking at Facebook. And I saw people sharing pictures of torches being held in the park at the foot of the Robert E. Lee statue. And behind them in the park is our steeple, which is illuminated at night. And so here, in what is veritably the church's front yard, is a torchlit rally where they were singing songs of I Wish I Was in Dixie. They're chanting Blood and Soil, You Will Not Replace Us, Russia is Our Friend. And it's happening right outside the steps of the church. And so I came in that morning and I talked to the senior pastor at the time and I said, we can't ignore this. This is a picture that is now going viral around the country, and that's our church steeple in the background. This is not something that we can close our doors to. Remember, we have to resist this kind of evil in whatever form it takes. This is God's house, and God's house needs to be open to God's people in times of need.
It was very, very wise and very, very brave, I think, of this church to open up this space as a sanctuary space, because it became sort of a headquarters, a place of refuge for people who found their way in here when the mayhem started to happen. There's a way to resist that is also a spiritual resistance for those people who didn't feel that they had the ability to be on the streets, for those who were maybe less abled or less willing to encounter the danger and the violence, that we wanted to have a place where people could be together, where we could affirm our beliefs through prayer. Many different denominations, were planning to be here. I think I remember that we had a schedule for the day. Every half hour was going to be a different denomination, offering prayer and song and witness. Didn't turn out that way because the events eventually pulled us out onto the streets and also brought people from the streets into here who needed counseling and help and first aid and all kinds of things. Now that this happened right here on our doorstep, we needed to step it up a little bit. We needed to take responsibility for the problems that we have here in our town. We needed to look into what is this phenomenon of white supremacy. We needed to learn about it. We needed to analyze it. We needed to be more proactive in resisting it. And a lot of that was conversations among ourselves, learning. For a lot of people, it was opening their eyes to things that they had never seen before or never experienced quite in such a strong way.
White people don't like to hear about their whiteness. And it was hard for me for a while to hear about this. But I think there's a process by which you come to terms with new information, and you are set free by it in a lot of ways. I'm not responsible for being white, and I'm not responsible for things that have happened, or slavery, or other awful things that have been perpetrated by other white people in developing these systems of injustice and oppression. But I am responsible for how I respond to it today. And I'm responsible for how I still benefit from a lot of those systems that are in place. You know, it's not about my life not being hard. We talk about things like privilege or white privilege. It's not that my life hasn't been hard. It's that my life hasn't been hard because of my skin color. Whereas for a lot of other people, their life is hard solely because of their skin color. And so to discuss that within a congregation is hard. That's difficult news, and people don't want to hear it. They don't want to engage with it. They don't want to talk about it. But I think that those who do earnestly engage with these subjects of racism and white privilege, of systemic injustice, I think they grow closer to God, and they grow closer to one another and the communities that they've served. And thankfully, I've seen a lot of that begin to take place since that summer.